How's it going, everybody? It's Stas here. So the stock market had a very strong day today across the board. S&P 500 up $30, up 0.9%. The Dow Jones up roughly $230, 0.85% in the green. And the Nasdaq up $12, up only 0.1% as big tech across the board struggled today. And get this, guys, the Russell 2000 ended up going up $50 today, outperforming the markets by far, up 3.5%. And in this video, we're going to be going over the stock market a bit more in depth, breaking down some technicals, going over what ended up popping the markets today. And I also want to go over some earnings to keep an eye out for as earnings season is kicking off, as well as 8 stocks that I'm looking to trade as of right now, as well as what I've been doing as of late in the stock market. So a lot to go over in this video, guys. If you find value, all I ask is for you to hit that like button for me, consider subscribing to the channel, and check out all the free links down below in the description box if you want to join our Discord chat, our Facebook group, and if you want 2 free stocks from Webull valued up to $1,400. All you have to do is deposit $100 into the account, and that's linked right down below in the description box, and that is when you get your 2 free stocks, again valued up to $1,400. So let's start off this video with the S&P 500 today, guys. And just like always, we start off the video with the S&P 500, and it's clear that the bulls ended up winning the day. They're not fully in charge quite yet because 3230 is still acting as a pretty big resistance, right? And we'll get into that in a couple of minutes. But the action that we saw in terms of holding 3200, which is a big level, guys, let's go over that now. If you take a look at the 5-day, 5-minute, notice how 3200 is roughly where, pretty much exactly where we ended up closing yesterday. So the fact that the S&P pulled down and did not fall below the close yesterday, that is a very good sign for the bulls. That means that, okay, we're not getting back into that territory between 3180, 3200. Instead, we're actually holding it as a new support. Buyers came in there, which is good, and we ended up pushing up into the close of the market. We actually made a higher low at about 3210 roughly, and we ended up popping up to that very big resistance, again, like I said, at around 3230 into the close of the market. And it's a big resistance because, A, we failed to break out of it earlier today. We failed to break out of it on the 13th of July. And pulling back a bit here on the 30-day chart, you should be able to see it. We failed breaking out of 3230, 3220 back in the beginning of June. So I'm thinking now that we held a higher low here, back on the 14th of July. We rallied up. We're kind of squeezing into this. It's almost like a wedge, right? Big resistance at 3230, and again, we're uptrending into it. So we're squeezing into this, and that could end up causing the S&P, quite honestly, to end up exploding upwards, and going to the next resistance up at about, let's see, I think it's at around 3,300, up at about 3,340. That's the next big resistance here that, quite honestly, I can see the S&P getting to, again, if we end up gapping up tomorrow. So watch 3,230. Very big spot here. I'm thinking if we take that out tomorrow, guys, if we see any sign of a gap up, that's going to bring a lot of buyers in. A lot of stocks are going to go bananas, I believe, and especially if we continue getting good news about the vaccine, which is kind of fueling the markets. And speaking about that, before we get into the Dow, before we get into the Nasdaq, let's go over kind of what ended up popping the markets up today. Other than a couple of earnings reports, which one could argue that, yeah, maybe that is pushing the markets up, but it's mostly the vaccine, and it's mostly the, kind of businesses going back to normal, the hopes of that happening once the vaccine comes out, because that's kind of what the vaccine represents at this point. Of course, it represents this virus going away for the most part, but it also represents the economy going back to normal, as a lot of restaurants will go back to normal, a lot of hotels, a lot of airlines, the travel, the tourism, all of that good stuff, right? So we got news today, actually yesterday after market hours, that Moderna, ticker symbol mRNA, they actually they're fueling the hopes that a vaccine providing protection against the CV would be developed in the relatively near term here. And Moderna's vaccine was actually producing neutralizing antibodies in all 45 patients, including in an early stage human safety trial, according to data published after market close by peer-reviewed New England Journal of Medicine. And also, guys, a big note here is a late-stage trial of the vaccine candidate is set to begin on July 27th, which is about 2 weeks from now, with Moderna representing one of the companies farthest along in creating a potential inoculation against the CV. So this kind of popped the markets, I believe, a bit yesterday after market hours. We saw the futures up, and that pretty much led into today as well. And again, we'll go over some earnings here in a couple of minutes. But first, let's talk about the Dow. The Dow ended up doing very well today. We took out a big resistance that we talked about in yesterday's video at about 26,600. That was the high from back on the 13th. So kudos to the Dow Jones for taking that out today. That is a good sign. That's a step that we're going to go up to 27K. I mean, we already tested 27K today. If you guys take a look on this intraday chart, we actually opened up roughly at 27K, which we called out over the past couple of videos, right? I mean, we talked about how if the Dow were to break 26.4, 26.6 is next, and then 27K is next after that, and it's pretty much played out according to plan. And of course, we didn't take out 27,000, we pulled down, but ultimately we held the uptrend here on the hourly chart, as you guys can see, based on the EMA, this light blue line, and we rallied into the close, which is a very good sign. Just like the S&P 500, this is telling me, okay, the bulls are still in charge when it comes to the Dow. We ended up holding, generally speaking, where we ended up closing yesterday as a new support, which is very good. So for tomorrow, watch 27K on the upside. If we take that out, the next big level the Dow could go to is 27.5, and then from 27.5 probably up to around 28,200 is what I'm looking for. And the Nasdaq, again, is just consolidating. I mean, we had a pretty decent up day. I think it was yesterday. The day before that is where we saw the collapse. Yesterday, we saw a bit of a recovery day from 10,300 up to about 10,700. But ultimately, guys, we're consolidating. We did not take out the close from yesterday, which is not too good for the bulls, but ultimately we're seeing resistance at 10,700. So for tomorrow, very simple. Although the uptrend from yesterday into today is still intact, as you guys can see from what I just drew on the 5-day 5-minute, although it's still intact, we're squeezing in this wedge, and it can still go either direction at this point. And watch for 10,700, watch for the pop, watch for something like that. If that happens, guys, what I just drew out, that would be obviously very good for the bulls, and we might be going back to all-time highs, right? I would not be surprised. But if we don't do that, if we don't take 10,700, if I could only speak, guys, if we don't do that, we might be going back down to test 10,500, 10,400, and so forth. So let me know down below in the comments, what are your thoughts on the markets here, the Nasdaq, the S&P 500, the Dow Jones. Now, before we talk about a little position that I took today, let's talk about some earnings very quickly to keep an eye out on. So Goldman Sachs today, they reported pretty impressive numbers. They reported EPS of $6.26 versus, get this, guys, $3.78. So they completely crushed EPS. Revenue came in at $13.3 billion versus $9.73 billion. So they crushed revenue as well. And when you're looking at their numbers year over year, I'm not going to lie, guys, I'm not an investor in Goldman Sachs, but this is pretty attractive in my personal opinion. We have revenue was, get this, $9.46 billion last year, and again, they just did $13 billion in the same quarter this year, so that's pretty good year-over-year growth. And they had EPS last year of 5.81, which this year was, again, 6.26. So that's nice growth as well, given the time period that we're currently in. But it makes sense because Goldman Sachs does deal more with the investment banking side, right? At least from my understanding. Now they're getting more into the consumer side. They have Marcus by Goldman Sachs, which is a high-yield savings account. I personally use that for some money. I think the yield's like 1.05%. So they're getting more into consumer side, heavier into the consumer side, but they were more in investment banking, right? And that's pretty good stuff there when it comes to Goldman Sachs. Good numbers and a couple of other companies to keep an eye out on. And by the way, Goldman Sachs on this pull down could pose a nice entry tomorrow. We'll take a look at what happens here on the 5-day, 5-minute chart. But for more earnings for tomorrow, Netflix, guys, arguably the biggest earnings that people are anticipating here. They're down about $50 off the highs. They're reporting tomorrow. I believe they're after hours, guys. The banks usually go pre-market. Yup, they're after hours. And a bank, speaking of a bank, Bank of America, they're also reporting tomorrow. They're actually pre-market. And J&J, one of my favorite long-term holds here for dividend growth, and just for stability. And by the way, they're a dividend king, meaning they've grown their dividend for 50-plus years, which is very outstanding, at least in my opinion, as a dividend investor. They're reporting tomorrow, pre-market, I believe, and that should be pretty interesting to watch as well. So those are some earnings. There's a lot more, guys. I mean, we can talk all day about earnings, but these are the main ones that I'm watching for tomorrow. Let me know down below in the comments some other ones that I might be missing. Now, let's talk about what I personally did today. I didn't do much. This week is it's been pretty slow for me, quite honestly, but yeah, I took a little position in McDonald's today, MCD, nothing crazy. This was more towards the end of the day. You guys saw how the Dow was up to 27K, the MCD, the McDonald's is in the Dow, so that means, they kind of move in unison a lot of the time, and we saw as the Dow was up to 27K, McDonald's was up to $195, so we saw that big pop, and if you guys remember yesterday, we talked about this. We kind of called this out, right? We talked about how if McDonald's breaks 190, which has been a big resistance stemming back from April, there's going to be some headway. There's going to be some headway either up to 198, $200, 205, that general area. And what do we see? Again, Dow Jones up to 27K. McDonald's gapped up to 195. We took the resistance out. That brought a lot of bulls in, obviously. And later on in the day, we saw the pull down and the retest on 190, old resistance as a new support. And let me check my notes, guys. This is where I took the position at about 191.05. Let me double check that. Yeah, 190.105 is where I took the position. And again, this was later on in the day. It might have been in power hour. Yeah, it was in power hour on this swing up here at about 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard, roughly, is where I took my first position of the day, guys. I mean, it was one of those days. And again, like I said yesterday, you don't always have to force trades, guys. I mean, you can just sit back, relax, watch the market. If you don't see something, hey, it's better to just sit in cash. And then once you see an opportunity, strike. And that's exactly what I did. And I pretty much executed this one according to plan. And the way I swing trade, guys, is I didn't add all my money right in front here with McDonald's, right up front. But I added a little position, and if it goes up higher tomorrow, next week, whatever, if it goes 195, I might add a bit more there, scale a bit more and feed it in the uptrend, into the uptrend, and then I'd probably end up selling out at about 200, maybe 205, right around there. So let me know what you guys did down below in the comments. Now, let's get into a bunch of stocks here. We have 8 stocks to talk about, and a lot of these are... You'll notice a lot of these are there's some retail plays. There's really one retail play here. Some restaurants, some casinos. A lot of these did well today because of this vaccine news, of this good news, because again, this is what's holding the markets down. This is the uncertainty, right? When is this whole CV going to go away? We're seeing the battered down stocks pop up. We had Ulta do very well today. I think it was up like 6.5%, 6.2%, up $12. And we ended up solidifying with this move, at least in my opinion, 190 as a support. Very good. This is a very good sign for the bulls, right? That was a support from back in the middle of May, back in the end of June. And now, quite honestly, with today's move and, heading into after hours a little bit here, we actually took out 202, 203, which was also a big resistance. So I'm not jumping in quite yet, adding my money into Ulta. You guys know I actually took a loss with this one last week, I believe it was. And I'm looking to re-enter, like I said, but I need to see a break above 205. That's kind of where I'm looking to get in. And quite honestly, I'd like to see it take out the highs from the beginning of this month, right around 210. If we take out 205, 210, I think it should be coasting up to 220. That's just my opinion, right, guys? Always do your own research when you're buying stocks, as always. But I'm thinking from 210, 205, 210 up to 220. That is the window here with Ulta. And ultimately, guys, and that kind of sounded weird, Ulta, ultimately, but... yeah, ultimately, this is a stock that's been battered down. I mean, the highs were 260, guys, back in the beginning of June. I think it's going to recover eventually. It's going to be volatile until we recover, but I think we're going to recover, and this could be very well the start of the recovery, as this is a double bottom pop. And a double bottom breakout, a double bottom followed by a breakout, is usually a very bullish sign, just like a double top followed by a dump is usually a bearish sign, right? So watch Ulta here, ULTA. It's going to be volatile, like I said, guys, because if we get some bad news now about the vaccine, we get more closures out there, it's going to affect companies like Ulta, but ultimately, I like it. And another one here is CAKE, Cheesecake Factory today, guys, up 13%, up 2.7%. And it's kind of like the S&P in a way. It's squeezing itself in a wedge here. You can see overall on the 4-hour chart, big resistance at 23.75, and we're rallying higher lows. Today solidified that as we took out the 50 SMA and the 180 SMA here on the 4-hour chart. So this is looking good. The bulls are getting in charge, but I'm not getting in until we break $24, right around that resistance at $23.75. I'm going to give it some buffer room up to 24, and at that point, I'd feel comfortable buying in. So I'm going to create an alert here. Mark is at or above $24, and then if it takes that out, I might get in, guys. If not, if we see a dump off tomorrow, maybe a red day, I'll scrap the trade and move on. That's the beauty of the stock market. Nobody's forcing you to get into a stock unless the setup is, of your type of setups, right? Depending on what you guys are looking for. So another one here kind of rallying up on this good news is Wynn Resorts, WYNN, up almost 10% today, up $7.40. So we actually are in a very similar situation to Cheesecake Factory, although we actually broke out of a big resistance at about $82. You guys can see that was a big resistance stemming back from March, April. It was actually a support back in May into June, but we broke it, making it a resistance again. So for me, guys, now with Wynn Resorts, you can see clearly we're right back at $88, which we got rejected at multiple times back in May into June. So I'd like to see a break out of this point, from 86, maybe to 88, and then from there, I'd like to ride it up to, let's say, $93, $94. That's kind of what I'm looking for here with Wynn Resorts, but ultimately, I wouldn't even be opposed to it maybe pulling down, retesting 82, and then rallying from there, and that can give us a lower cost basis, right? That's ticker symbol WYNN. So let me pull up my notes here. And let's get this next stock rolling, guys. This next stock is Procter Gamble, PG. And the funny thing is we might be seeing some rotation here. I mean, we've seen and we've noticed over the past couple of weeks a lot of volatility. I mean, we're seeing rotation in these big hedge funds and some of these pension funds. They're moving money around at the end of the quarter, transitioning into the latter half of 2020. And it seems like they've been buying up some value names. I mean, I'm not sure exactly, but PG could be one of those. I mean, this thing has rallied from 116 up to about 130 almost in the matter of the past 2 weeks. And now we're seeing a pull down from about 127 down to about 124 today. I know it's not crazy, and after hours we're rallying almost to 125. I know it's not crazy, but if you're looking for a safer swing trade, I'd say, and nothing's completely safe, there's always risk, but if you're looking for a safer, quote-unquote, in a blue chip, large cap that doesn't really move too much, this could be an interesting opportunity, a nice little dip. There's about 2-3% upside. I mean, I might even take this trade tomorrow. We'll see what ends up happening here. From 124 up to 128, 130, I'm liking it. And Starbucks pretty much performed exactly to a T as we talked about yesterday. And we talked about it yesterday at about 71 to about $72 as a decent buy. I didn't buy any, but we talked about how at that level over the past couple of weeks, I mean, we've held it as a support once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and we almost broke it. I think it was earlier this week, but we held it, we rallied up, broke 75 today, big resistance, and now we're in a new range between 75 to about $80. So maybe now if we take out the 180 SMA, we already took the 50 SMA out, this green line, but if we break above the yellow line, the gold line, whatever you want to call it, we might be going from 76 up to 80. So watch that there for Starbucks. 2 electric vehicle companies, you guys could probably guess them. They're finally seeing some downward pressure. Finally, guys. Tesla, although Tesla was green today, I think it got down to 1,400. Was that earlier today? Was that yesterday? Am I losing my mind? Yeah, that was actually today. We got down to about 1,470, and get this, guys, 1,460. That is where it held as a support after hours on the 13th, in the morning on the 14th, and today, probably more like the middle of the day on the 15th. So this could be a triple bottom breakout on Tesla. It very well could be if we end up breaking this little downtrend over the past 2 days of trading, the one that I just drew. So watch out for 1,550, 1,600 to break. I think if it does, I think their earnings are coming up, especially if they do well in earnings. I've seen price targets for Tesla now, $2,000. I can see this thing. I know it's crazy. I can't believe I'm saying it, guys, myself, but the momentum, I think, can get us to $2,000. Their earnings here are what? On the 22nd. That's creeping up on us, guys. That is next week. That's next Wednesday. So next Wednesday is going to be a fun day. I think Amazon might be reporting that day as well. Let me double check. But ultimately, I'm watching Tesla to rally into earnings, maybe after earnings as well. Let's take a look and double check that. They're actually on the 23rd. So the day after Tesla reports, Amazon reports. So get ready, guys. It's coming. These numbers are coming. It's going to be very exciting. NIO was down 4% today, down 60 cents roughly. They're down about $3 off the highs, down about 20%. So will they hold the 50 SMA here on the 4-hour chart? If they do, that could be a good entry. But if they don't, this thing could blow down to $10, $11, and at that point, I would definitely be a buyer of the stock, as I would love to pick up some shares in my swing account in the weakness. That's kind of what I'm looking for here when it comes down to NEO. So let's end it off here with Virgin Galactic, which got some very good news today. They're actually getting a new CEO. The stock's up about $1 after hours, up about 6%. It actually almost hit $20 after hours here on the news. So let's talk about it. They announced that Michael, and I'm probably going to butcher his name here, Michael Cole-Glazer. That's a pretty cool name. Cole-Glazer. He's becoming the new Chief Executive Officer, replacing George Whiteside. And George Whiteside is actually going to be the Chief Space Officer. So he's not leaving the company. He's taking a different role here. And this is going to be effective on July 20th. And the reason why I'm excited about this as a shareholder in Virgin Galactic, as somebody that has call options as well, this guy, Michael Cole-Glazer, and I'm not going to lie and say I knew him before this. I had no idea who this guy was, but he actually used to work at Disney, guys. He brought over 3 decades of experience from Disney, and he worked and developed growing the consumer-oriented multi-billion-dollar businesses overseas strategically, commercially, and operationally. And he was most known as the president and managing director of Disney Parks International, where he was responsible for, like I just said, operations, strategy, commercial, and experiential development of all the international parks and resorts. So the key point to get out of this is that this guy has experience in human experiences, if that makes any sense. He has experience in building human experiences, which Disney is known for, one of the most awesome human experiences, fun, that anybody could have out there, right? Depending on what you guys like, but for the majority of people, a lot of people out there think Disney's fun. So him taking what he did in Disney and transitioning over to the space industry with Virgin Galactic, I think that's a good move. I think he could take his experience there and turn what they have going on with human space flight. He could probably turn that into something great, right? And I believe it will be one day. That's why, obviously, I'm invested in the company. So that's pretty much it for the video. That's a good place to end off the video. If you guys found value, as always, hit that like button for me. Consider subscribing to the channel and check out all the links down below in the description box if you want to be further connected with the Strive Smart community. And don't forget, you can get 2 free stocks also linked down below from Webull, valued up to $1,400. All you have to do is deposit $100 into the account and you get 2 free stocks, and I also get 2 free stocks, as it is an affiliate link and it does help support the channel directly and all the free content that I'm putting up here on YouTube. So I'll catch you all in the next video. Thanks for watching. As always, stay safe out there, guys. Peace out.